Hello everybody, this is DeanoGTO and welcome to patch 9.19. So, what's the main feature of 9.19? Well, there's a couple of HD models added to the game, things like T44. Well, we've been waiting for that one for a long time, so it's nice that that one has finally come. Things like the BDRG1B as well, and just in general some HD models. But what's the main feature? The main feature is the addition of ranked battles. So, this is coming out, I believe, next Monday, and honestly, I think it has a lot of potential to be a very interesting game mode. So it's going to be season based, kind of like the World of Warships season or World of Warships ranked battles. But there's not going to be as many tiers as there are in the World of Warships ranked battles, which are daunting as hell. Like I mean, like if you've ever played World of Warships ranked battles, I believe it goes from like rank 18 to rank 1. Like you go from the lowest rank to the highest rank. Um, and the highest rank is number 1, the lowest rank is like number 18 or some shit like that. So there's a lot of ranks to go through, and it's actually kind of it's daunting, but there is kind of a benefit to it in that regard because it means that if you say hit like rank, I think it was like rank 12 or something, you couldn't fall back below that rank. So it was kind of like encouraging moving forward, but there would be a lot of ranks where you could lose that rank and go and head back down to the previous one that you were locked into. So it's an interesting system in World of Warships. In World of Tanks, I believe it's going to work in this way. I believe there's going to be 5 ranks from what I recall, and say like I don't know if I had the numbers backward, but I believe rank 5 is the highest and rank 1 is the lowest. But say if you start off at rank 1 and move up to rank 5, you can't lose rank 5 once you've obtained it. So as soon as you've obtained it, you're fine. That's pretty much how it works, and as far as I understand it. So what this mode is basically going to be is basically like it's going to be a credit. What's the best way of putting this? A credit drainer. Like it's going to bleed your credits like nothing normal because I believe it has the same kind of economy as the standard, as playing a tier 10 is like a standard just normal battle, but instead you're only fighting tier 10s, and tier 10s, as we all know, if you're running a standard account, are practically guaranteed to lose money. There's very rare circumstances where you can make money, but typically that's in things like with like the E100 where you're doing like 750 off per shot and you fire like 12 shots and like lose like 1,000 health max, and then you're able to make money. But if you die in a tier 10 game, in a tier 10 vehicle, typically you're going to lose like 10,000 credits minimum. So yeah. So what do I think are probably going to be the best vehicles for this game mode? So first off, I'm just going to rule out casement tank destroyers. So tanks like the Jagdpanzer E100, Object 268, Foch 155, the what the hell's it called? What's the other one? Oh, the E3. That's it. Things like all the things I got there, which have casement based, like just guns lodged in the hull. Those tanks are going to be really bad for this type of game mode because it's going to be all tier 10s. Yes, they're going to have the most powerful guns, but because because they don't have the ability to react quickly to a developing situation, they're not going to be particularly good vehicles for this game mode. Like, say for example, if it's say 3 mediums, or say if it was like 1 heavy and 2 mediums versus an E3. The E3 may be able to kill one of them, but all it takes is like one of the mediums to get behind it and then it's dead. All it takes is one and then it's dead. So I I honestly think that the mediums are probably going to be probably the strongest vehicles, although I could potentially see the heavies being dominant as well, things like Type 5 and the mouse. I could see those being dominant, but the problem with those is, well, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't see a lot of the mouse or the Type 5. They're not exactly they're not we're not exactly like facing like the T110 E5 apocalypse, where the E5 was like the only tank you would see in tier 10 games for a long time. Um, it's nowhere near to that extent with the mouse and the Type 5, even though they're kind of overpowered right now. They're nowhere near like popular enough to really massively impact the game. Um, for me, I don't see the super heavies being massively dominant just because they don't have the ability to react. It's the same kind of issue as the casement tank destroyers. They don't have the ability to react, and as soon as you close enough range and you're able to get to the side of something like a mouse, the armor's meaningless, and you're just able to penetrate them with no real issues whatsoever. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see like how it develops. Like if the mouse is more popular or the Type 5 is more popular than expected, potentially they could be the tanks that just kind of own that game mode. But what I see is more likely is the mediums taking over the game mode and pretty much just owning it, because the advantages they have over the light tanks are they are slower, but they have way more armor, well for the most part, and they have way more health, and they have definitely got the better guns, because in comparison to the mediums, the light tank guns just they don't compare for the most part. So yeah, I think personally this is going to come down to the more mobile heavy tanks and the slightly more heavily armored medium tanks. The reason I say that there is because I think tanks like the E50M, the T62, Object 140, Object 430, STB1, M6 or not M60, the M48 Patton, and what was the other one? Yeah, I'm just trying to think. And things like the Crown Wagon as well. Crown Wagon IS7, things like that. There tanks which have some armor, but it's mainly on the turret, and they're able to basically tank a bunch of shots, but they're able to actually, like, if they're able to see the turret of the tank they're facing, they're able just to put a bunch of damage really, like, either really quickly or they're able to do a large amount of damage in a single shot. So I see tanks like the Crown Wagon being extremely dominant in this here because this thing has a monstrously powerful turret. I mean, it's practically got no weak points, and well, it doesn't practically have no weak points. It has no weak points, and the only way you're going to penetrate this thing is if the driver is going to show you the side of it, in which case the driver's not doing a particularly good job, or you've outflanked, and chances are you probably have a shot at the hull, and the shot at the hull is probably the best option in any scenario. So the Crown Wagon and the T57 I see as being more popular than the MX-50B, mainly because the 50B is so squishy. The 50B is extremely easy to penetrate and do a lot of damage to very, very quickly because it has no side armor and it's got a massive weak point in the form of the turret. Things like the Batchat and the TVP 5051, the hell was there? Yeah, tanks like the STB1. I see those tanks being extremely powerful. The STB1 because it's got a rounded, sloped, and pretty small target turret. TVP 5051 because it has massive burst potential in terms of its clip, and the Batchat because it has a huge amount of potential in its clip. Just overall, it doesn't get it out particularly quickly, but it has a massive amount of potential in its clip. Things like T57 and the Crown Wagon I definitely see as being more of a threat because T57 is able to unload its shots in like I think it's like 6 seconds, and the Crown Wagon is able to do it, but it's able to do it. It's not able to do it as quickly as either the T57 or the 50B, but it's able to do it without taking damage, which is a big boost to this thing's effectiveness. So I definitely see the oil loaders being extremely powerful in this here. So in terms of like more lightly armored mediums, the ones that are kind of closer to light tanks than mediums, and they're closer to being light tanks than medium tanks. Things like the Leopard 1, MX-30B, the not that. Let's see, MX-30B, and tanks like the Centurion Action X as well. I don't see those being particularly good options in my honest opinion because let's see. So the reason I don't see those being particularly good options is because things like the Action X, as an example, are really big targets, but they have no armor whatsoever to bounce any kind of shots. They're relying completely on their guns, and they have no ability to bounce any form of round that's put towards them. Like, it's just if you want to if you want to do well in this year, I think you need a degree of survivability combined with good guns. You can't just have the good gun, because if you just have the good gun, you're probably going to get killed very, very quickly. So, I think the survivability is going to play a major role in this year. Like, who's going to win between a Leopard 1 and a T62A? My bet's on the T62A. Who's going to win between a Leopard 1 or 30B against a 140? I would bet the 140. So, yeah, I think you need some degree of armor. You can't just rely on your firepower because those tanks essentially play more like snipers, in my opinion, than they do as proper medium tanks, which are able to take a couple hits. So yeah, I see the ultra lightly armored medium tanks not being particularly good this year, but tanks like the E50M, the T62A, the 140, the 430, the M48, the what's the other one? The 121B or the 121, maybe not. But yeah, just tanks which have some degree of armor, and are at least somewhat flexible. The 121, the reason why I kind of excluded that one is because that one just has so little flexibility, and because his gun has got so little gun depression, that I don't see it as a particularly good option. So let's see. What's the tanks I want to go over next. So when it comes to like the tank destroyers, I've already mentioned casement tank destroyers are going to be pretty much worthless, but when it comes to tanks which have somewhat of a moving turret, tanks like the Grill 15, the E4, the Death Star, and the, well, STRV 103B technically does not have a turret, but its hull kind of acts as a turret, if that makes sense. So I'm going to count that as in this like little thing I'm going over here right now. So these tanks have some more potential to be used because they have a bit more flexibility and they're going to be a bit more usable than the standard tank destroyers, but they still don't have full turrets, so they're not going to be as reliable as playing something like a medium tank as an example. Although the SGRV 103B I personally think is probably the best options of those tanks I just went over in terms of tank destroyers. The Grill 15 probably second. The E4, I'm not entirely sure what to think of because it does have an issue with its turret only moving like halfway around each side, but it does have decent enough armor and it does have the weak cupola, but it still has that massive alpha gun, and if it has any kind of support at all, this thing could be devastatingly powerful. Personally, I think probably the best tanks to go for are the tanks that kind of split the difference between the heavies and the medium, heavies and the lights. The lights I haven't even gone over because I think tanks like the Sheridan and the 13105 and the what the hell is it called, the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, I think those tanks are. I don't think those tanks have the characteristics you're really looking for this type of game mode. The Panzerwagen's too big. The Sheridan's falls into the same category as being just too big with no armor whatsoever to bounce any kind of shot that comes towards it. And the 13105 is just a bad shot. At the point in time before making this video, the 13105 is just pretty much just a bad shot. So I did leave out the T100 LT and the WZ1321. The reason I did that is because these tanks at least have some potential to be used in this game mode, because this thing here is just so small and so quick. I think this thing could potentially be a very, very, very powerful option. I mean, like, even things like T62A, this thing here could be annoying too because it's just so low profile and so difficult to actually hit the, like, imagine this situation here where this thing here gets close enough to say T62A or an object 140. It's monstrously quick, and yes, its gun's inaccurate as all hell, but it still has a 300 alpha gun, 230 pen, so at point blank range, this thing could be potentially very, very, very dangerous. And it does have at least a half decent reload. I mean, 8.22 seconds with no equipment. That's not bad at all. And I think this thing does have some serious potential to be very, very dangerous. The only problem with it is the length. I mean, it's a very long tank for how narrow and how low profile it is. So that could be an issue for it. But I think overall it could be a very interesting tank to pick. Although I would say overall the 140 and the T2 are probably the better options. The D100 I would definitely say is still an option. So when it comes to the WZ1321, I think in comparison to the 121, this is definitely the better option because it has some sort of spaced armor. So if it does turn into a premium ammo fest, which I'm kind of thinking it will, um, this kind of spaced armor here and spaced armor on the sides could actually help this thing out quite a lot in terms of just surviving shots that it has no right to survive. Um, Also, it has a 390 Alpha 246 pen gun with 5 degrees gun depression, so it's more flexible than the 121. And even though it has terrible accuracy, I think that because this thing is going to be so goddamn quick, I think this thing's probably going to be one of the better options, is just in general for this game mode. Because, I mean, look at the weight of this thing. It's a 30-ton tank. It's a 30-ton light tank. I mean, let's look at something. Actually, I'm actually kind of curious. What's the weight of, say, a TVP 5051? I actually don't know. This thing weighs 40 tons, so that's pretty heavy. I already know the weight of the Kranwagen. What's the weight of the Leopard tank? It's about 40 tons as well, isn't it? Yep, 40 tons as well, exactly. Let's see. Let's look at the 30B. 36 tons, and the Batchat 25T is 25 tons, I believe. Where's the weight? Oh yeah. So that's a funny thing about the WZ1321. It's actually 5 tons heavier than the Batchat, and technically it has better armor. I mean, if you're able to ram the rear of a Batchat in a 131, 132 or 1321, I think you're probably going to come off better because you're a heavier tank and you do have 50 millimeters of frontal armor. So the 1321 could potentially be a very good option for this. You may notice for the most part I've ignored the UK line because I think this thing is not going to be a particularly good option because it's just too awkward and it doesn't have a great ammo capacity. The E5 is going to be probably a spectacular option because just in general the E5 is amazing. The M48 I can see being a decent option as well. T57 we already know is a very, very powerful vehicle. Let's see, anything else I really want to go over? The 113, I don't like that tank very much, but I feel like it could be a decent option. When it comes to Japan, Type 5, it depends on how the game, on how the mode goes. TVP 5051, the Kranwagen, the SRV 103B are all very, very, very good options. The Leopard 1 Ramtop Panzerwagen I put in the CPI category as being just too easy to kill, in my opinion. The E50M has troll armor and it has a really, really solid gun. The E100 is too big and too slow. It's too much of a premium magnet. Same with the mouse. And the Panzer 7, I just don't think it's a particularly good option because even without premium rounds, it still has a lot of weak points in form of its under turret weak point and all. If you don't know what I mean by that, there I'll just quickly show you. This area here, if this thing side scrapes at all, it has a massive weak point. So it's kind of a bit of a flaw in this thing's design. So let's just see. When it comes to Russia, the casement tank destroyers I'm ignoring. The T100, T2, Object 140, and the 430, along with the IS-7 are all very good options. IS-4 I think it's a bit too slow, and the armor only really works versus premium rounds whenever the person's auto aiming at you. If the person actually aims where they want to hit, then the armor's not really that effective. And I've already mentioned the M48 and the T125 feel like a good option. Same with the E4, T57. Sheridan, along with the Remington Panzerwagen, just too big and too lightly armored. T57, T124, both good options. E3, I think, is just going to be too inflexible. Foch 155, no point in even mentioning that thing. That thing is just not good. Let's see. 30B, same category as the Leopard. Batchat has the clip potential, so it's still relevant. 13105, just a bad Batchat. 50B, I feel like it's a bit too much of a damage sponge. So, yeah, those are my general thoughts on the vehicles at Tier 10. So, I think overall the mediums are probably more likely to be the dominant force in the battlefield because they're just overall extremely versatile vehicles with really solid accuracy, and when they use premium rounds, they're pretty much the best tanks of the game. So, and let's just face it, whenever it comes to the higher ranks in the ranked battle mode, premium rounds are going to be the primary round everybody uses. That's just what's going to happen, because that's just what happens when it comes to this game. When people try and get more competitive, they immediately just they immediately press the 2 key and just load the premium. So, yeah, those are my general opinions on the vehicles at tier 10 for ranked battles. I feel like it's definitely going to be more mobility and some armor based than just all armor, no mobility. That's going to basically take the lead. I mean, the Russians I honestly think are probably going to be the best option, but the E50M is still a pretty decent option. And the autoloaders, as always, are going to be extremely powerful and popular. So yeah, I'd be curious to know what you guys think are probably going to be the more competitive vehicles. Which vehicles do you think are probably going to be the most frequently chosen? Which ones do you think are probably going to be the worst? Which ones do you think I'm wrong on? Which ones do you think I'm right on? So yeah, I'm really curious to know what you guys think of this year, because I haven't entirely made my opinions up, and well, I guess it can make sense because well, ranked battles doesn't come out for like an all week, so no real way to be 100% sure. But this is just my kind of just general thoughts on what could happen. So yeah, as I said, leave comments in the comment section below, and yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.